a lot of it is us making sure we're in alignment with our goals and our values and what we want out of life eventually and how we're going to do it and our character and our morals. And we realize that at the end of the day, what's best for Alan is most likely what's best for me.
I'm definitely not being selfish, but I'm definitely not being overly selfless at the expense of myself, because that will burn the ship down. If there's holes in your boat and you're not taking the time to plug those, remember that's not good for your intimate partner either.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another very special, as always, NLU Weekly Live podcast for week number 128, Alan. Do you believe it? 128 weeks. That's a lot of weeks.
It's a lot of weeks in a row.
Many weeks. 3 simple mindset shifts to improve your relationship. Now, it's good. We're good.
Off to a great start.
So just full disclosure, Alan and I have not recorded an episode all day. We did do a new intro and a new outro, but that's all we got done in the several hours we have been together. So this will be the first one, and hopefully it goes well.
But we did mastermind about business and life for several hours. So
yes,
we've learned some things, we think.
Yes, if only that counted for something in front of the scenes. Behind the scenes, it's truly life-changing. In front of the scenes, it doesn't look like we do much. Okay, so as you know, for this podcast, we talk life, love, health, and wealth. And we talk a lot about mindset. We talk a lot about awareness, but you don't think often about the awareness in a relationship. What is my mindset when it comes to my intimate relationship or any relationship? So today we decided we're going to do 3 simple shifts for you. 1, okay. So as you know, I'm the ultimate cat dad. Best cat dad ever. I have a t-shirt that says it. You can't get a t-shirt unless you are that. So it is true. I am that. I was getting ready to clean the litter box the other night, or it was the other morning. And Taryn does it at night. I do it in the morning. Taryn does it at night. I do it in the morning. And we have this flow. That way it's nice. Taryn was missing. She'd get home late and she'd be tired and she'd forget to do it. And I'd get up in the morning and I'd say, well, I'll do it because I'm here. And she'd miss again because, again, she might be out late, or I know she went to a concert and there was a lot going on. And it got to the point where I would be a little bit frustrated in the morning. It's like, okay, I could do one of 2 things here. One thing I could do is say, look, you didn't do it, so you got to do it this morning, right? Like, you're not holding up your end of the bargain, or you're missing, or whatever it may be. I could say nothing and just leave it. And if she asks me, just say, well, no, you didn't do it, so I didn't do it. Or I could do the third thing. The thing that I chose to do is make sure you understand that, number 1, you're on the same team as your partner. So what I thought to myself was, okay, yes, I am doing this. Yes, quote unquote, this was her thing to do, but we are on the same team and she would do this for me. And at the end of the day, it's not about the action. It's about the result that we're going for. So the fact that the cats need a clean litter box is not something I should take out on them. It's not something I should take out on Taryn. We're a team. And as a team, you pick up the slack for one another. Whether that comes for your love languages or getting groceries one day or whatever it may be. So anytime I get frustrated with something that I am doing that I don't necessarily want to do, I just think to myself and I tell myself, same team. We're on the same team. When we're both triggered or we're both stressed out, anytime we have a tough conversation, I just try to say, like, same team, babe. Like, we're good. We're going to get through it. Same team. And I think that's just an important shift to have, because you can fall to defaulting where it's you against your partner and you're not doing it for the same reason. You're not doing it for the same result. You don't have the same aspiration in mind. So point number 1, you're on the same team. So make sure when you're feeling overwhelmed or stressed, or, someone's not upholding their side of the bargain, you remember that and act accordingly.
Kev, this is also true for our business partnership as well. And I feel like we've done a good job of remembering we're on the same team when things get tough.
Yeah.
So it's not just in intimate relationships. It's all
true.
All relationships. True. You're on a team, and if you're not, and I say this often, you can either lead, you can leave, or you can appease. And we'll get into that. Go ahead, man.
I was just going to say, many people have told Alan and I that we will not succeed as a business partnership, and I think it was pretty surprising to me to hear people say that, but I think you and I behind the scenes, even to your point today of us masterminding, a lot of it is us making sure we're in alignment with our goals and our values and what we want out of life eventually and how we're going to do it and our character and our morals. And we realize that at the end of the day, what's best for Alan is most likely what's best for me. because ultimately that's going to help us in the business. So yeah, it's an important understanding to have.
So I remember at the beginning of COVID, this is beginning of 2019, Emilia and I are in the beginning of our relationship. I want to say this is probably like a month and a half in. So maybe it wasn't the beginning of COVID, but I remember having this conversation and she said, Alan, we're never going to fight. I forget how this got brought up, but she said, we're never going to fight. And I remember thinking to myself, like, well, I want to be with you forever. I know you want to be with me forever. So like, never? Like, we're never going to fight? And the household I grew up in, there was some fighting. And I'll just leave it there. But to me, that was like unfathomable. It was like, okay, so that's interesting. She's like, well, and she explained it. She said, the point is that fighting presupposes there's a winner. And when you fight, everyone loses. So we're never going to fight. Now, we'll have disagreements and we'll have debates and we'll discuss things, but we're never going to fight. And here we are almost 3 years in, and we've had disagreements and we've had debates, and some of them were passionate, but never once have we raised our voice at each other. Never once have we had a fight. And I do understand that that's not necessarily the most relatable thing in the world. And I give her more credit than I do, because anytime we were headed that way, she would be the one to be emotionally regulated and really bring us down. And I don't mean bring us down in a negative way, but like cool the jets and like take a minute or whatever. So her emotional regulation is like world class. So I give her more credit than me for that, genuinely. But my point is that we're on the same team. And I'll never forget that for as long as I live, because when she said that when you fight, there is no winner, because when you fight, everyone loses, that's really what happens. And you can talk about an intimate relationship and you can go into the science, and on the Conscious Couples podcast, we talk about this all the time. It can take you years to build a bridge and a single day to burn it down. And Kevin and I's relationship, coming up on essentially 6 years almost in business together. It increases by a year every time I say it.
Yeah, no, I like that. Maybe 20 years in no time.
Yeah. No, I think it's like 5.5. March 2017, I think, is when the podcast started, right?
April 2017.
Damn, April 2017. So how many years is that then?
That would be 5 and almost a half, but we weren't working together from the very beginning. I don't know if you know this or not, but I started a podcast called the Hyperconscious Podcast. So, but yeah, it's probably been like 5 years.
Okay. So for 5 years, if Kevin and I were to really ego up and get triggered and forget that we're on the same team and get mad at each other, we could really hurt our relationship. And what took us 5 years to build could really get hurt and devastated in a single day. And this is why relationships are so precious. This is why love is so precious. This is why your intimate relationship is so precious. Emilia and I are coming up on 3 years. And what it has taken 3 years to build really could be destroyed if we're not careful. And we both joke all the time. We're like, we just don't want to screw this up. Like, let's just stay calm. Let's stay centered. Let's make sure that we're, accurate in our thinking, and let's be on the same team. So that's the point here, is you are on the same team, even though sometimes in the moment it doesn't feel that way. And I think that's the key. Whenever you're triggered, you might not feel like you're on the same team. There have been times, I remember, Kev, one time you and I were on a mastermind together. Mm-hmm. And after the mastermind, we did what's called an experience review. And you proceeded to berate me about the fact that I didn't even read the book.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just joking. But we had a big disagreement. And after that, we were texting and we were good. But you're not alone in this challenge. When you coexist with someone, whether it's kitty litter or it's small or large, coexisting with other people towards mutual goals is like one of the most difficult things in the world. And I coach many couples, and we have a podcast literally about this. Remembering that you're on the same team, especially when it's easiest to forget that, is absolutely everything if you want the relationship to succeed long term.
Taryn's birthday was Thursday. So,
happy birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday, Taryn. So we got her a cake, and I went to get the cake. And at this bakery, Alan, it is a dangerous game when you haven't eaten all day and you've been working all day. Dangerous game. So they have like chocolate-covered pretzels that have Oreos and sprinkles and just everything you could ever imagine. So I'm waiting for the cake because they got to check, wrap it up, and they're going to check me out and all that happy jazz. And I said, let's pump the brakes here. Don't get me out of here yet. Let me take a look around here and see what I can do. And I ended up saying, okay, I'm going to get these 5 things. And I said, but let me get 2 or 3 of everything because I want to make sure that I am bringing some back for Taryn. And that's something that we have. And she's the most thoughtful human in the world. I'm so grateful. And I'm not always, honestly. Sometimes I forget. Like sometimes I'll get a coffee and forget that Taryn might want one just because I'm like, get a coffee, go home and do whatever. But the second point is bring more than you take. When I think of this, I think of the Halloween. There's always that house, Alan, where somebody puts a bucket on the front porch and it just says, take one. Yeah. Imagine if the first person who went up there just took all of them. Nobody else would have any left. But imagine if somebody came behind them and they put a bunch back. If you can
true or false?
Yeah.
True or false?
Don't you dare.
Have you ever?
No, that's not me.
You only took one?
Of course I did. I'm sure you probably... I'm a rule follower.
I know. Full disclosure.
Which house was it?
I have taken more than one.
Which house was it? Was it on your old street?
Oh, for sure. In my defense, I was with some shady characters.
Yeah, well.
Some shady characters. No, of course. Yeah, we took some more candy than...
Not me.
I learned those lessons young.
Honest Abe. But that's the second point.
I am ashamed.
That's the second point. Bring more than you take. Again, even it kind of goes to the first point of being on the same team. But many of us are thinking, what's in it for me? What's in it for me if I do this? What's in it for me if I don't do this? How do I get my needs met? How do I make sure I get my way all the time? If you're not bringing to a relationship, if you're not adding value to a relationship, it's not going to last very long. And think of it this way. If you're adding value to a relationship and making sure that your partner or partnership, whatever it is getting their needs met, odds are you'll get yours met as well. And we have to think of it from a selfless place, not a selfish place. What can I do to add value to this? And a lot of people will ask Alan and or I, how do you get mentors? Think about it from that. What value can you add to that person? Not what can you get from that person. What value can you add to them and make it a win-win? And a relationship has to be the ultimate win-win. If it's not, it will not last very long. And if it does last long, it won't be very enjoyable. One of the questions we get asked most often is, what is my purpose and how do I figure out what I really want to do with my life?
And even if you're one of the few who do know what you really want, you might not know the steps to accomplish it, or even worse, you might not believe you can.
There's a bunch of people and programs out there that are trying to show you the easiest way, but not necessarily the best way for you.
Next Level Group Coaching is not only a place where you will understand yourself at a deeper level, but you'll also understand how everything you're learning applies specifically to you, to your life, and to your goals.
The Next Level You family is built on understanding, inclusiveness, and creating a supportive environment where you can always be your authentic self.
Many programs like this are literally thousands of dollars. Ours is not only more affordable than that, but with our 6-month payment plan, it's less than $100 per month.
And by the end of the first call, you'll have definite, clear, and specific goals. And by the end of the program, you'll have the exact daily steps to accomplish them or your money back.
At this point, our group coaching program has graduated dozens of people from all over the world. We only take 10 at a time, and honestly, we cannot guarantee the price will stay the same for future groups.
Now, there are a ton of reasons you should do this now, but the biggest one is that the version of you're working so hard on becoming is waiting.
Yesterday, Emilia and I went for a hike on what's called Lookout Rock near here, and we got home and she had a ton of back office work to do. Back office work is just anything giant to-do list stuff like behind the scenes, and Sunday's the one day that we don't do any sort of front-facing stuff, so no podcasts, speeches, or events or any of that. So it's like the one day that's all back office. And we had a giant to-do list on our whiteboard, right? We've got laundry, sort laundry, do dishes, meal prep, like all those things. And I told her, I said, sweetheart, like, genuinely, I know the last few weekends, the last few Sundays, you haven't had enough time to set your week up for success. I feel like, I don't feel this way anymore, Kev, after today, but I said, I feel pretty ahead of schedule with a lot of the NLU stuff. I feel good. I feel really good.
That lasted long.
That lasted about a day. But the point is that we call it the implementation gap. So we have an awareness here, and then we have implementation here, and we always want to try to close that gap. In other words, here's what I'm aware I'm supposed to do, and here's what I actually need to get done and implement. She had a much larger implementation gap than I did. So I said, don't worry about it. I'll go grocery shopping, and I did. I went grocery shopping. I did the meal prep. I did the dishes. I did the laundry. She helped me sort the laundry, but I said, just go do your thing. Totally fine. and I told her this on the hike. I said, remember Next Level Live when it was like a month out and she did everything because you and I were just completely focused on the event? And I said, sweetheart, like, it doesn't bother me at all. And she said, honestly, I'm uncomfortable with that because I think in the past there's always been repercussions when I wouldn't carry my weight. And I said, that's not going to happen. Like, as long as we're on the same team with it, back to the first point, I literally said this, as long as we're on the same team and we're both aware, like, I don't think I'm going to have any resentment. Like, we talked about it. I'm happy to do it. It's not a big deal, right? And genuinely, it's not. So to Kevin's point about selfishness versus selflessness, when Emilia and I first got together, it was actually a couple months prior to when we first met. She had reached out and offered a episode title called Selfishness versus Selflessness.
We had a fight about that as well, almost physical.
Yeah. So we're in the studio, which at the time was my mother's basement, and we recorded the whole episode. It was like a half hour, and I was like, Kev, you don't understand her, you don't get it, right? That whole thing. Little did we know that was my future love of my life. So it's interesting to reflect back on now. But she had suggested selfishness versus selflessness, and how do you draw the line? Where do you draw the line? How do you know when you're being overly selfless at the expense of self? How do you know when you're being overly selfish at the expense of others? And we call it drive to 5 whenever there's a dichotomy between these things. Just make sure you're at 5. And that's the advice that I would give is this second one, bring more than you take, 100%. 100%. You need to do that. But if you tend to always give more than you receive, you need to be careful because that might also build into resentment. Mm-hmm. And so Emilia and I in particular have been in relationships in the past where we were the givers. And the quote here is, givers need to set limits because takers have none, especially if you're super abundant and you're super aspirational and you have a lot to give and you love to add value. Sometimes you can overdo that. And so with her and I, it's kind of like who can give more, who can give more, who can give more, who can give more. And so what we've had to do is have honest conversations with each other and say, like, honestly, I'm not taking enough time for me, or vice versa. And so you got to find 5. That's what I would say, is try to make sure that you're at that optimal stopping problem, that middle point of like, okay, I'm definitely not being selfish, but I'm definitely not being overly selfless at the expense of myself, because that will burn the ship down. If there's holes in your boat and you're not taking the time to plug those, remember, that's not good for your intimate partner either.
I will quickly add one, Alan, and then you're going to do attachment styles quickly because we've already been 17 minutes. Real quick.
Crazy.
So ask yourself this. We're talking about mindset shifts. What is the intention of this relationship? What is my ultimate goal? What am I in this for? What am I committed to? I'll never forget when Tori Aletto at Next Level, Top Notch Live said the point of a relationship is growth. That is the point. That is the goal. And I think oftentimes it's easy to forget that when you get caught up in the day-to-day drama or stress or overwhelm or missing each other in terms of your intentions, whatever it may be. So yeah, what is the goal? What is the point? What is the intention of the relationship? That's a good question to ask yourself. All right, attachment styles, Jeffrey.
Okay. One tiny point to add. I know we got to go.
Please.
The point of your intimate relationship being growth, that is going to change everything for you. We talk about this on the Conscious Couples podcast a lot as well, and in our events, Relationship Talks events. So if the purpose of the relationship is to have a good time, which a lot of people fall for in college or high school or whatever, it's like the point is having a good time with this other person. What happens when you start a family together? When the purpose of your relationship is growth, every challenge becomes an opportunity for growth. It becomes an opportunity to learn more about yourself, to learn more about your partner, to learn more about how relationships work, to learn more about how to be better, how to do better. When the purpose is growth, it makes everything work much better, right? And what a lot of people are after in an intimate relationship is love. Love, in many ways, is actually a byproduct of mutual growth. So something to remember. Okay, attachment styles. Thank you, brother. Thank you. So there's a book called Attached. I highly recommend that everyone reads it. I do not know the author off the top of my head, so I apologize for that. But you can look at it on Audible. Fire. So the 3 attachment styles, essentially think about it this way. So all of our listeners, if you're new, we talk a lot about drive to 5. I've already mentioned it. So on the far left end, let's call that 0. On the far right end, let's call that 10. And then the center is 5. Attachment styles are kind of the same idea. So there's an avoidant attachment style, which is 0. So like avoid, avoid, avoid. There's an anxious attachment style, which we'll call 10. And then there's 5, which is centered and secure. So the 3 attachment styles are avoidant, secure, and anxious. And so here's the challenge that I've found so many times in coaching clients and in my own life as well. So I'll use Emilia and I as an example. So my attachment style in the past, I think, was actually avoidant. With Emilia, it's more anxious. I would say it's secure 85 to 90% of the time, but when I get triggered, you usually jump to either anxious attachment style, which is overly needy, or avoidant, which is like, I needed space, I need space, I need space. And usually your intimate partner is the opposite of yours. And so with Emilia and I'll just use us as an example like I do. So most of the time we're both secure, at 5 centered. If something happens where I'm triggered or she's triggered, she'll usually need space and she'll ask for space, and I'll say and I'll ask for reassurance. I'll say, I just want reassurance. Like, are we good? Like, is the we good? The we is the relationship. So me, and we. And she'll say, honestly, I'm not sure right now. I'm still processing. I'm sure we're good, but I need some space to go process. And she'll like go take a shower or she'll go think or whatever. Here's the problem. If I'm overly anxious and asking for reassurance because I'm triggered, her wanting to avoid will actually trigger me more. And so we have to be so sometimes she'll try to give me reassurance when it doesn't have to do anything to do with us. So everyone hopefully is thinking about themselves right now. Think about your own relationship. Think about your own attachment style. Do you tend to be secure? Do you tend to be centered? Okay. When you get uncertain, when you get insecure, are you avoiding and keeping someone at arm's length? Which is just triggering them, making them think you don't care when you really do. Which, by the way, if you didn't care, you wouldn't be avoiding. That's the fascinating thing. If you didn't care, you wouldn't be keeping them at arm's length. That's the fascinating thing. What's really deep underneath the avoidant attachment style is, I'm uncertain, I'm scared, I care so much about you that I'm afraid I'm going to screw this up, or I'm going to hurt you, or I'm afraid to be hurt. So what you do is you avoid, because we avoid things that really matter. Or we get overly needy, which is the anxious attachment style, which is like, and both of those tendencies are very self-sabotaging. One person gets overly anxious and is clingy and needy. The other person gets triggered by that and then does avoidance, which makes the other person more anxious, which makes the other person avoid more, and you can see where that can really go astray. So what do you do about that? If you are avoidant, you just say, I need a little bit of space, but don't worry, we're going to be fine. Just provide a little bit of reassurance with that. If you are the anxious attachment style, you can just ask for reassurance. You can say, listen, it's going to be hard for me to go about the rest of my day if I don't know that we're good, because you're really important to me. So vulnerable problem solver is really the solution to get back to secure.
Can you just explain vulnerable problem solver real quick?
I think you're good at that.
Oh, boy. I usually just say something. The vulnerable problem solver, the vulnerable part of it is you showing a fear. The problem solver is you creating some sort of solution. So again, it could be, one of my fears is that we're not going to come to a solution on this, and you're going to end up resenting me. And I just want to make sure that we talk about this at some point. Or something simple like that. It's really you being honest, being courageous enough to be honest. Me? Secure, normally. When I get triggered, I would say I'm anxious.
And Taryn?
And then opposite, avoidant.
Yeah, makes sense. Which is interesting because what I've found fascinating, and this is, I know we don't have time for this, but I think it's not the same in every relationship.
I would agree with that.
Right. So Taryn's attachment style might not be avoidant with other people. You know? Yeah. It's definitely fascinating.
I'm a problem solver. I want to get right to it. So it's almost like I'm almost like pursuant. Maybe not even anxious. I'm like, what do we like? Let's talk about it now. Let's do it.
Same.
You and I are similar.
Emilia will often say like, I'm still processing.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, let's process together.
Let's process together faster.
Yeah, faster. You know? Yeah.
Next level nation. If you are a member of the NLU family, you want to get to the next level. And oftentimes the people in our lives, they may not know how to help us, or they may accidentally hold us back. Our 8th round of group coaching is starting on October 4th. I can promise you there will be none of that. Fully empowering an amazing group of other individuals who want to get to the next level. Alan, myself, we have a co-host in the group as well. Bi-weekly coaching calls. It's wonderful. If you are interested, please click the link below or in the show notes, and we would love to see you there.
There's also office hours every other week as well with the assistant coach for anything that you have questions on. We have a workbook, private WhatsApp group. You get to use the app, track your habits. It's honestly awesome. Also, every Saturday, as you've heard many, many times, we do something called the Next Level Book Club. We are currently reading Switch, this book right here. I always take the sleeves off so I can't show the cover, but Switch by Dan and Chip Heath. The chapter that we just read was Bright Spots. Oh, this is Script the Critical Moves. This book is unbelievable at helping you change your behavior. A lot of us know a lot, we're learning a lot, but are still having a lot of trouble actually executing, actually getting our behavior to change. It's a lot easier to contemplate how not to eat ice cream than it is to actually not eat ice cream. And I love ice cream, so I'm not necessarily saying that's a bad thing. My point is that it's easier to tell ourselves a new story. I'll start Monday, or I'll start Tuesday, or I'll work out one day, or maybe that diet program's wrong or whatever, than it is to actually just do the work and change our actual behavior. That's what this book is fire for. Come with us. It's a community of very like-minded people. We discuss the book. We discuss the chapters. We all discuss our own lives, and we learn from each other. Sharp minds sharpen one another. Great books with great people. Join us every Saturday, and the link will be in the comments and show notes.